Now, by the way, I think certain people should be afraid. I think Tony Fauci should be afraid, actually. You fund the creation of the COVID virus. You know you're doing it. You're committing Frankenstein research with American tax dollars in a Chinese military biolab. You know that COVID is out. It escaped from the lab in August of 2019. Within a short period, you know this. You don't tell anybody about it. You're responsible for the creation of this virus. You know that with the Chinese military. And somehow you get to boss the country around. You get to exert more power than any single citizen in the history of the United States. And then at the end of that, once you've been exposed as a criminal, you get Secret Service protection at taxpayer expense and a sinecure at Georgetown because you're a hero and anyone who asks questions is a danger to you. We need to correct some misconceptions there, okay? But in general, I would say Trump voters, like Trump himself, are really forgiving people. They don't seek revenge. They seek some measure of justice because the human heart longs for justice, but they don't seek to grind their enemies under their feet. That's what the left does. Most of these people are Christians anyway. They believe in forgiveness. So I actually don't think Kamala Harris faces a prison term. And I don't want Kamala Harris to go to prison. I would like Kamala Harris to get a legitimate job for the first time in her life. Unlikely, has no skills. Whatever. I have a lot of hopes. But it doesn't matter. The people who've been running things are absolutely paranoid and afraid. And it's not just Democrats, by the way. It's Mitch McConnell in the Senate. It's a number of Republican senators who have collaborated with the regime for years, many, many years, and they are really afraid. And the main thing they're afraid of is disclosure. The system operates on secrecy. And again, anyone who has been a teenager, or anyone who is male, I'll just say that, understands that secrecy is 100% a marker for sin. As distinct from privacy, by the way, we have, doors on bedrooms and bathrooms. Privacy is great. We have no privacy. They have secrecy. So secrecy allows people to do things which, if known, they could not do. Evil thrives in darkness. We know this. And so the whole system is set up to keep you from knowing what they're doing. And they use classification laws in order to do that. And they fear that if Donald Trump's appointments go through and Donald Trump's people get in charge of the government and get control of the levers, that they will reveal to the country what has been happening, well, to be precise about it, for about 61 years since, whatever, or 63 years, I guess. Well, exactly. And then subsequent to that, what exactly has been going on? And so, by the way, I just want to pause and say, you will know that reform is coming, that corruption is in retreat. You will know that things have a chance of getting better when Tulsi Gabbard is confirmed as Director of National Intelligence. And why will you know that? Why is that a critical appointment? It's not just because you like Tulsi Gabbard, agree with her. Even if you dislike Tulsi Gabbard and disagree with Tulsi Gabbard, don't like her. She is the critical appointment because she has the ability to declassify the truth about what your government has been doing in your name with your money for decades. No one doubts that Tulsi Gabbard's a patriotic person. She's an Army officer. She served in the U.S. military for 20 years. So, by the way, if she was a foreign agent, how exactly is she carrying a gun in the U.S. military? It's absurd. You will know who's on which side by the reaction of Tulsi Gabbard. If there are Republican senators who are voting against Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation, then you either in the Intel Committee or in the Open Senate, you will know that person is not only my enemy as someone who voted for change, for openness, for transparency, for an end to corruption, for a draining of the swamp. You know that person is an enemy of the United States. Period. It's really that simple. And you will get the same story. Oh, it's national security. We can't let our enemies know. We can't trust Tulsi Gabbard. No, we can't trust you, actually. This is going to take place in the open. assuming we get that far. So this is just the one point I want to make about the next 30 days. There will be attempts to prevent this from happening. I don't want to make anyone feel paranoid. But at this point, once you win the Electoral College and the majority of the popular vote, that is an undeniable mandate, so there's no way to argue that Trump shouldn't be seated or anything like that. No one is contesting this election. No one can. You're going to need an event that is effectively catastrophic to change the course from openness to more secrecy, and there's no faster way to do that than a war. And by the way, the kind of war that the Biden administration is advocating for right now with the world's largest nuclear armed power could eliminate the United States and the entire Western Hemisphere. That's not an overstatement. But you will see people you think are your allies all of a sudden telling you when the United States so badly needs attention, someone in charge of the United States has to look at the country and say, you're in trouble. The numbers show it clearly. This country needs the attention of its leaders. It needs the care of its leaders. It needs people who actually want to improve the country, not the world, the country. And if some of those people look you right in the face and say, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to deploy to this, that, or the other country because there's an imminent threat to the world, you know those people are trying to thwart the progress that you voted for. Those people are your enemies. I'm sorry to say that. It's just true. And I don't care what I lived there all these years. And I watched it no, we have to do this. We have to do this. And this person is now our enemy. And I went along with it every single time. I was like, well, that guy sounds bad. And by the way, they almost always were bad. You know what I mean? Like, most leaders are pretty bad. Everyone's a kind of variety of Idi Amin, though most are less entertaining than he was. But you know what I mean? Like, this leader's bad. Well, I believe that. That's why I don't live there. I'm from here. I was born here. This leader's bad. Yeah, great, got it. So we need to all of a sudden take our entire budget, all of our energy, all of our attention, and focus on killing this leader. Well, it's like, you know, I'm not going to weep for that leader, but like, what about me? What about my country? What about my children? Well, that can wait. Well, actually, it can no longer wait. And I think we need to say that really, really clearly. And the next time Dan Crenshaw stands up and says, but you don't understand the threat. Shut up, Dan Crenshaw. And everyone liked Dan Crenshaw. Just about had it with you. You got hundreds of thousands of American citizens dying of drug ODs, and you've done nothing. Your state was invaded by foreign nations at the behest of international organizations, including the United Nations. 15 million young men just came into our country for reasons we can't even understand, and you did nothing over your border. And you're going to tell me that some other nation is the threat? No, you're the threat. And that's true. So I don't care what party that person comes from. That person is an enemy of everything that you voted for. Trust me. We've seen this movie so many times, and the way that they short-circuit your critical thinking and get you to go along with it, and I know because I've been a victim of this, is by scaring the crap out of you with something. And the second you're afraid, you're like, oh, I guess an experimental vax, okay, I'll take it. Oh, I can't go outside anymore? All right. I'm worried about my grandchildren. Oh, we need to kill Saddam Hussein. He's bad. No! No mas! No mas! Fix this country. You are the father who abandoned his children, and there's no excuse for that. You, Dan Crenshaw, you entire Democratic Party, you Mitch freaking McConnell, you're the one whose own children languished and died while you focused on the neighbor's kids or kids in another country. All of that may be fine, but your duty is to your kids. That's why you're the leader. And anyone who shirks that duty is guilty of abandonment, and there is no lower man than the man who abandons his family. There is no lower form of leader than the leader who doesn't care about the people in his charge. And so make that the litmus test, I would say. I demand more. What are your priorities? And if they tell you some faraway place where people speak a language you don't understand, in a conflict that you can't possibly comprehend because it's in another country, that's priority one, you're done. You're done, Mike Pence, and all the rest of those people. But they're relentless. I mean, they are relentless. If you're a decent human being, you don't get people to respond to you by threatening them, because that's sick. You don't beat your dog. You don't threaten to, smack your kids until they obey you. That's grotesque. You can convince people with love and by example. Unfortunately, that's not how you deal with politicians. They just don't respond that way. They're a different kind of organism. You really have to tell them, I'm sorry, get with the program or you can't get elected again. Because that's the only thing you care about. Because you're weird. And that has to be a baseline demand. Dan Crenshaw cannot be a congressman again. You just can't. It's just too insulting. Oh. And a home invasion requires you to pick up your gun and say, get out. And if you won't, you shoot him. I mean, I'm not Gandhi, okay? But a war of choice for the profit of a few and to satisfy the completely ridiculous theories of AEI and all these other absurd think tanks in Washington, those are really immoral. And anyone who's for that going forward is immoral. I think that. Convince me otherwise. That's what happened during COVID. Good people obey. Do you love your grandparents? Then you'll obey. Well, of course, all good people love their grandparents. They respect the elderly. So they preyed upon your best qualities. They leveraged your decency against you. That's deception. And you're going to see that with speech. You're going to see this is hate. And some of it may, in fact, be hateful. But it's still your birthright to express what you believe, even if other people don't like it. And if there's one thing you have to defend, it's that.